There's the beat drop. That's what I was waiting on. Welcome back into another edition of the Wolves Den. I'm Jay Bir. You see the Twitter handle. Make sure you follow it because it's literally one of the greatest Twitter handles and Twitter pages out there. You might notice something a little different here. We kind of revamped the logo a little bit. So, you know, we're like I said earlier, we're constantly evolving this thing here in the Wolves Den. Unfortunately, we're going to have to kind of take a look back at what happened this past week. I know Arkansas State Twitter, all the social medias are kind of on fire right now, but let's take a deep breath here. Let's find our zen here, and let's revisit what was last Tuesday's, I guess you'd call it a debacle here. Nationally televised game. There's the matchup there last week. You saw App State coming to town for Arkansas State. A very hyped matchup coming to this one. A lot of people were kind of questioning that 9.5. It even got up to 11-point spread line and all that kind of good stuff. Go ahead and throw it up there for me, guys. Let's just, like I said, just get right into it there. Justice Hansen leading the squad. And in fact, early in this one, it really wasn't that bad. They were able to move the ball a little bit, and that pass right there was unfortunately about as close as they got to the end zone, though. But Blake Grupe came to play. This one right here gave him a 6-0 lead, 47-yarder. That, I believe, was a career high for the young fella. He was hyped. Special teams were all over the place in this one. But we'll talk about them here in a little bit. But unfortunately, for Arkansas State, they kind of gave up the chunk plays for App State. And that was a thing that we talked about last week coming into this one. You just cannot give up big plays. Jalen Moore, that was a guy, look away if you didn't see it, because that was a nasty injury for him right there. Doubtful he'll be ready to go for the rest of the season, unfortunately, for App State. But they were moving along in this one. This is probably one of your best plays on the night for Arkansas State there. Justin McInnis getting the pass there, and unfortunately, it would lead to another one of these field goals. So a little part of Arkansas State is like, okay, you have a reliable field goal kicker now. It's been a little bit of a struggle, but there you go. And then, unfortunately, that would be the end of scoring for Arkansas State. App takes the lead right there, and then Justice Hansen, moments later after App takes the lead, throws that unfortunate pick, and then it was only a matter of time before App State punched it in, takes the 21-9 lead into the half, and it really just changed the whole facet of the game here. You see Justice Hansen trying to push it up a little bit towards the end of the first half, got a little too greedy there, and then it was just kind of game on from there and sort of really running out the clock, because Arkansas State could not do anything. So, unfortunately, they would go down in this one. You see, here was the icing on the cake for App State. Zach Thomas just rips off I believe that was a 52-yarder, memory serves me right. That would cap the scoring, and there you go, the shaking of the hands. Throw up the stats there for me, guys, because we got a few to digest here. There you go, third downs. Still a problem for Arkansas State, especially offensively. Now, defensively, not too bad. You see, 6 of 16, not too shabby there. Keep them going, guys. Just throw them all up there for me. The rushing, again, they're getting ran all over, 246 yards. Arkansas State struggling getting the run game going. The turnovers, you saw them there, 3 of them, unfortunately. Offensively, though, App State averaged 6 yards per play. Arkansas State, there you see, a little over 4. So, not a terrible discrepancy. Arkansas State did run a lot more plays. In fact, I believe it was 82-65 in that department. So they held the ball and they ran some plays. Just unfortunately couldn't get the yardage going. And when we're throwing up special teams, guys, it was a rough night at the office. There you see those special teams. Grupe 3 for 3 field goals. Like I said, he had the career high 47-yarder. And then Cody Grace, man, what are they feeding that guy? Guy has some guns. 45. Yard average on the punts. He had 4 inside the 20, so the guy is a maestro with the boot. He also had a long of 62 yards. So Blake Anderson, very complimentary of him after the game. Really flipped the field, and they used him in. All right, let's bring in our guy here. We're going to shift around here a little. He's a little taller than me, so we might have to get you to squat down a little bit there. Christian Boutwell, he's the Arkansas State beat writer for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And I guess, Christian, I was downfield level. You were up in the press box. Just what did you see throughout this game that really caused a problem?
Yeah, it looked like Arkansas State had kind of a stubborn offense at first.
They did, yeah.
They didn't move much from the short passes. They stayed with them. They tried to, make something happen out of it. And it was odd to see them stay with it for so long. 3+ quarters, and they would kept going short pass, and it seemed like something, intended to keep App off the field. And once you're down in a hole and you're trying to fight a deficit, that's not the way to do it. And so it was strange to see how they approached that for sure. And so once you're seeing all these short passes, you're wondering, what's going to come? Is their offense going to break out? Are they going to go to something else? Are they going to look for the deep ball? Are they going to use Hansen? How are they going to open up the offense? And you never really saw that. You never saw a transition from what started. And so it was interesting to see, and it seemed like, Blake said after the game that they came to the game with a shorter game plan, which is something you don't expect from them, given the passing offense and how explosive it can be. Having a shorter game plan seems like it was kind of a hindrance to them. And so it was strange to see that they stuck with it for so long instead of trying to break out. And that was a bit of alarming, to see them not really be themselves. It was strange to see.
Yeah, and we were talking, talked with several others after the fact, and the fact that they didn't take a lot of vertical shots, and not necessarily deep balls, but just even throwing the ball downfield. And like you said, they didn't really use that side-to-side game to really set anything up. I think we saw a little bit in the second half, out of the beginning, where they used a little bit of that play action, and it kind of seemed that sort of got the ball rolling. But then, like you said, they just didn't abandon that side-to-side game, and it just didn't work out. Yeah,
it's strange. When you're fighting a 12-point, when it balloons to 26-point deficit, you need something that can give you some life. And I think a lot of the short passes were intended to give the offense some confidence. They've struggled just to get it going the past few weeks. I mean, scoring a touchdown in only 2 of your past 8 quarters is something unusual to Arkansas State.
Yeah.
And so when they're doing that, I think they're just looking for little things that can give them some life, give them, give them confidence. And they couldn't find it, and they never veered too far from it. And so to see that was alarming, and I think they're also alarmed by it because their offense hasn't been itself in a few weeks, and especially against Sun Belt teams that they should be able to A, compete with, or B, beat.
Yeah.
And so it's odd to see it.
Now defensively, I know the score looks ugly, but I think defensively they played pretty well. I mean, this is a team that was averaging over 50 points a game coming into this one. For all intents and purposes, you take away about 2 of those touchdowns. One was sort of a layup for them on that Hansen interception, and then there was a garbage time touchdown scored, that long one there, to sort of seal the deal. So if you want to take that into account, really 21 points to a pretty explosive offense. What would you make of the defense in this one?
I think they stood firm for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, App State can score like a machine, and so when you can keep them quiet for much of the first half, you're doing your job. And I think when you're competing field goals with touchdowns, you run into a 3- and 7-point math problem, and it's just it becomes an issue. And so when you can't score and help the defense, the defense will wear down eventually. And so if they wanted it to be a shootout, which seemed like it was the only way they could win, then they needed the D to, the defense did what they could. They just needed some offensive support.
Seems like they're not really creating a whole lot in terms of turnovers either. I mean, obviously, with Georgia Southern, just that style of offense, you're not going to really get a whole lot of opportunities to create turnovers. But with App State, they got a sophomore quarterback. Didn't seem like they put a lot of pressure on him. And I know that's kind of what they've thrived on in the past, was generate that pressure, get a kid thinking, make a mistake. For all intents and purposes, Zach Thomas was pretty clean most of the night. I think they had 1 sack, didn't really feel like they had a lot of pressures, therefore didn't really get a whole lot of turnovers or even opportunities for turnovers.
Yeah, for the defense to really, give the offense even more, a turnover or 2 would have been huge for them. It could have flipped some field position. It could have given them something.
Right.
And the defense, they had produced turnovers earlier this season. They really have.
Yeah.
And so for them to not get one this game when, they really needed it against a team that can score so many points was a bit underwhelming for them.
Yeah.
And I think they know that too, and I think they needed just 1 turnover. I mean, you could see Hansen's interception flip the game basically. It was an early dagger.
Yeah.
And so once you see that, then the defense, they tried, they stood firm, and then it fell apart.
I know you were kind of asking some things about morale and just some of the frustrations after the game. Kind of what was your takeaway from what Coach Anderson, even some of the players, had to say?
Yeah, I think that was surprising because I think on paper, when you looked at them, the offense, of course, is the first issue that you want to address. But then Blake was asked, what is the biggest concern after 2 straight losses? The first time they lost 2 Sun Belt games since 2014. After that, what's the concern? And his immediate reaction was morale, which is strange to me to see have a coach have such a limited roster. First of all, but to go to morale was interesting, and I think that really resembles the state of the team. And that 2 wins in, 2 losses in, they are looking for themselves. They're trying to find something, trying to find themselves, and I think that's not a place that they especially expected to be in at all. And so that is most concerning.
Well, yeah, especially too, I know a lot of fans have talked about the hype, and obviously fans are fans, and they're disappointed, and they're obviously feeling let down. But do you think maybe the players bought into that hype a little bit, and then to have such a monumental achievement there in the non-conference, having won both of those games after not having won one for 10 years prior to that, and then kind of get smacked in the face? Kind of your take on that?
How could you not? Having such a good non-conference streak. I mean, 3-1 is the best start they had in 10 years. Yeah. So when you're looking at that, you're saying, wow, this could be one of our best seasons ever, right? You started against the tougher teams. You can say Alabama, some of those teams. UNLV had a great run game. You start against those teams, and you beat some of them.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at the Sun Belt like, we should just run this. Let's run the table.
Yeah.
And when it starts to fall apart in the first 2 games, then I think even the players, I mean, how could you not buy in?
Yeah.
And so when these 2 losses, you run into a wall. And so now I think there's a huge mountain to climb to get out of this rut. And they've started it seems like, but they have a lot to figure out.
I know Blake Anderson in his post comments did mention, and in fact, I think he alluded to a previous team before. He's been here before. He's like, I've been here before, and they went on a run. This team is still not out of things. I can't stress that enough. They're not completely out of a Sun Belt championship. I know in years past when it was just the round robin format, 2 losses, you're out of it. But now with the divisions, changes the game a little bit.
Right. Yeah, it's different, and they know that too. With the divisions and having a West and an East, and the 2 losses came against East Division teams. They know that they can still get to the Sun Belt championship game if they win the last 5, and those are coming up, and I think they know that, and they've known it all season that these are the ones we need. We might drop a few, and if we do, I think they kind of timed them out perfectly. If you're going to make a puzzle to try and do this, I mean, these might be the ones. I mean, all losses for them are not good.
Right.
They know that, but when you're looking at divisions and head-to-head matchups and the ones that matter and can factor into who goes and plays in the Sun Belt championship game, they're coming up.
Yeah. It's looking likely that they might be on the road at App now, because I know a lot of talk coming into this one. Whoever wins this one could potentially end up hosting this one. We saw how that worked out. So a Boone trip could be in the works for you. It's just kind of mysterious. You've kind of followed the team all season here. Just offensively, I mean, so many weapons. We talked a lot, too, in the preseason about how big this offensive line is and how they were trying to address some of those red zone issues that they've had in running the ball. And it's not there. Something is missing. Now, what is your take? What do you think is missing from this team? Is it just an emotional kind of let's go kind of a leader guy? Because, we know Justice Hansen is a pretty cool, calm, collected dude, and he kind of leads by example, and he's not necessarily a rah-rah guy. Are they missing a rah-rah guy potentially?
I don't know if it's a rah-rah guy. I think what they're missing is, honestly, confidence. Because I think giving up 6 sacks at Georgia Southern put them in kind of a bind. And so once you have 6 sacks, I think you're looking at something that can get, put less pressure on the offensive line. And that could be the quick passes. It could be something you find earlier, that's less pressure on an offensive line that has 3 first-year starters, full-time guys that are up there, and that's more than half of your line. And so when you're looking at that, you're trying to find different ways that you can attack a defense without putting too much pressure on a weakness. And so those quick passes can do that. Rushes can do that. And so when you're doing that, you're already looking for ways to help yourself. But once it doesn't work and they don't transition away from it, then you're looking at a bigger problem. And that's like, we can't fix the issue because we tried something already, and, and that didn't work. And so now what? And so I think that's the issue that they're running into.
How big is Dahu Green and obviously in this game, Kendrick Edwards weren't available? I mean, how big are those 2 guys right now?
Yeah, I think their skill set, especially on offense, their biggest threats are those giant guys on the outside that can create one-on-one space. And when in doubt, Hansen can just throw the ball up and they can go get it.
Right.
And so when you don't have all those options and you're running out, and so the defense can give you different looks. They can play one-on-one and your receivers may not be able to get open. And so that can really stymie your offense to where they can't free themselves. And I think that's what you saw this weekend, especially, is because there are a ton of one-on-one matchups, but they didn't attack them, which was rare. Because in every game this season, anytime they have these one-on-ones on the outside, are expected to have them. They went right at them. Again and again and again. And so now when you don't have Dahu Green and you don't have Kendrick Edwards, you're looking at an issue. And Brandon Bowling went out this week too. And so now it's even a more limited wide receiver core. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so especially when they're trying to give their offense some life and bring it back to what it was and how it's been the most prolific Sun Belt passing offense all year, and for years. And so here they are, and so now they're looking at, what needs to change.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that group evolves and how they use them differently. Because and hopefully the Edwards injury doesn't linger on for too much longer. Because obviously, as you can see, they need him. And I know Justice Hansen was under a lot of pressure just for the mere fact that nobody could really get open. And I don't know if it was just, I think App State kind of implored a little bit of that Tulsa defense where they're just dropping 6-7 guys and say, hey, if you want to line up and run, go for it. And it seemed like they bottled the run up, too. Couldn't get anything going on the ground either.
Yeah, it was weird to see because you saw a lot of these, especially early on.
Yeah.
A lot of the short passes, Hansen's feet weren't set. There were some weird things going on. It seemed like they looked a bit rushed, which is something you don't see from an offense that's been smooth for so long. That when you're looking rushed and then it doesn't feel like it ever can catch a rhythm, it can't catch any sense of itself.
Especially when they want to run it at pace.
Yeah, exactly. You can't catch any sense of yourself. It's like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
I don't think it was like a be calm issue. I don't know what it was, but it just seemed like it was going too fast for comfort the whole time.
Interesting. All right, good insight there. All right, so you got the two, I think it'd be pretty safe to say, the two hardest Sun Belt games behind them. In the past, here we go. Georgia State coming up next. It's going to be another nationally televised game. I know that was a thing they were kind of bragging on last week, that of all the nationally televised games, Arkansas State's been on the most, 11 of those 25 nationally televised games. Hey, number 12 coming at you. It's going to be another home game. Georgia State coming to town. Georgia State, not quite the team. I don't think anybody. They've taken a major step back, it appears, in this one. So let's throw up some of those keys to this game here. I think really you got to find some mo on the O. So there you go. What do these guys need to do, in your opinion, to just get this offense something?
Yeah, I think a drive or two could do it. It could be crisp. It can be 5, 7, 8 plays, 70 yards, and they could just feel like, all right, we can actually do this. We have our offense back. Everybody, everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
One clean drive could give them enough life and enough energy to see that, they can put these things together. And so if you have a drive that has a few bigger passes, your run game can open a little bit, and it can just be a gradual process, just chipping at it, and then at that point they can return to themselves.
Yeah, and it should be, you would hope that they can get kind of things motoring here. Georgia State, a team that's allowing 34-plus a game. That's good for 105th in the country. They don't score a lot either, Georgia State. They had the one game there against ULM. Aside from that, hasn't been much for them. In terms of the yard, their offense, they've been struggling too. There you go, kind of falls in with limiting the big plays, because that's what we've seen burn Arkansas State, and that seems to be when they give up points, is when there is a big play, 20-plus yards type of thing, that they give up on a certain drive, because we even saw it against App State. Bottled them up for the most part, and it was kind of feast or famine. Yeah. They locked it in, or they gave up some big chunk plays, and it led to a score.
I think that can also say limit big plays / don't fall into a hole. Don't put too much pressure on an offense that needs to find itself. Right. And I think that would be their biggest. If they could come out and score 7, just punching a touchdown, I think they would feel like, okay, like it would be a deep breath. It would be a sigh for them. And so if they can just not put their offense in a hole, they would feel more comfortable. And I think that's the key.
All right, some big play stats here. Here you go. Georgia State has 89 10-plus yard plays. That's good for 40th in the country. But then it drops off pretty significantly after that. They're 24th, or they have 24. They're 82nd in the country in 20-plus yard plays, 104th in 30-plus yard plays. So I think in terms of defensively and maybe putting some pressure on them, maybe they can limit that a little bit this week. Also there, you got to score touchdowns. Right now, both of these teams tied for 92nd in the country in terms of touchdowns scored. You've been alluding to it. You can't trade field goals. And we saw it last week. They had, in the halftime, both teams scored 3 times. App State had the touchdowns. Arkansas State had the field goals.
Right, yeah. 3s do not equal 7. They never will. They never have. And they've known that for the past 2 weeks. You know? And it's been an issue. They said after the game on Tuesday that their biggest issue is that they can't finish, which is strange. And when you have so many wide receivers and the weapons that they do have, to not be able to punch it in, it's confusing. It is. Why is this happening? Why why can they get down the field but not score other than the field goal unit? And Blake Anderson has said, he goes, I don't want to send the field goal unit out there. Like, let's score. Let's get 7.
Yeah.
And so for them, if they, touchdowns, as tough as they are to come by, but as easy as it sounds, they need them.
And again, this will be a team that you can maybe do it against in terms of yardage. Allowed 119th in the country. The Panthers. Red zone. We've kind of. I think it's all encompassing here in terms of the offense. But it seems like in the red zone, they just sort of sputter out. And I know I know things are tougher in the red zone because you don't get as much space to play with.
Right.
But again, you got that big offensive line. They just can't seem to run the ball. What have you noticed from the running game where it's just something's not clicking?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at the running game, it's similar to a short pass game. It's how they can get 4 or 5 yards. It's how they can, try and get someone to break the edge. And I think their freshman Marcel Murray has been their guy who can get outside.
He can get there.
He can cut up space when he's out there. And I think when they're looking for it and they're trying to get, trying to break that edge,
right,
he is one of their few guys back there. I mean, they have a couple older running backs who are veterans and who are sharp running backs.
Yeah.
And they're wise guys. But when they're trying to find those few yards to build to a first down, to build to closer to the end zone, to where Hansen can be the threat that he is down there, and the running game can be open, and that's when they're back to themselves.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking for that, you're wondering like, how can we get this going?
Yeah.
And so that they, the past offensive line issues, the running game, and how they can get outside. I think it's a combination of different things that they need to work to put the puzzle together.
Absolutely, and you're kind of puzzling to see why. I'm trying to explain this here, but it seems like they kind of abandon the running game at times. It's not like altogether, but they just aren't generating a push, it seems. And not that teams are blitzing either. It's just mano-a-mano. And for, again, I know I've kind of harped on it here, as big as these guys are, they're just not generating much. And you don't get to see Way used maybe near as much as he probably should be, because he's kind of the bruiser back there. Marcel Murray, kind of the hybrid. And then, obviously, Warren Wan is your scatty, quick guy. It just doesn't seem like they, maybe it comes back to what you said, sort of finding that rhythm.
Yeah. I mean, being the new guy around here, the first thing you know about Arkansas State is they can pass the ball. And when it can, it's moving everything. And so when you're hearing Blake Anderson say, "Let's get the running game going. We need this to establish that."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, okay." So like they're trying to put together the whole complete picture to give you something. And so I think that's when I first heard how important they emphasize the running game.
Right.
And that's when you realize that they need it so much to free up the pass. And so I mean, as with every offense, you need the running game to open you up on the back end so you can throw the ball. And that's what they've been looking for so long. And I think that can help. If you can get it going and break off a bigger run or two, then the passing game looks wide open. And you're right back to yourself. Yeah,
and two, it prevents guys from dropping 6-7 guys into coverage if you can bust through that initial line there. Also, third downs has got to be a big thing in this one as well. I know in terms of converting them, Arkansas State just hasn't done much with it. They're 107th in the country in terms of third downs. Not that Georgia State's a whole lot better. They're 72nd, but 35, 39%, not good. And again, there you see penalties. Penalties are always going to be a thing with this team. They did pretty good last week, had a couple, but nothing that really changed the course of the game or the course of a drive. So what do you think? It seems to be the one thing that they have done to correct is the penalties, but it seems like everything else has gone out the window.
Yeah.
Maybe you take all the offense, give me a few penalties, though.
Yeah, I mean, penalties and anything self-inflicted.
Yeah.
Anything that can hurt themselves, I think they just want to just throw it away. And so once they're trying to figure out, how can we not damage ourselves before, we can try and damage the opponent, then they're looking at, how can you fix that stuff? And penalties fall right into that because they had some issues with them earlier this season. They got rid of them for the most part.
Yeah.
They helped themselves out. And so anything that doesn't hurt themselves helps them.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's what they're looking at. These next few games, they think that they can beat anybody if they don't hurt themselves. And it's pretty true.
Yeah.
If they're Arkansas State, that everyone knows that they can pass the ball, their defense is going to be strong enough to hang in there, and they can put up a ton of points, then they have a good shot. And so once you're looking at that, you know that they have a chance, and so they're thinking the same thing. Don't hurt yourselves, hurt the other team, and if we're doing that, then it's pretty simple.
Should be able to work. Let me go back to the third downs here. We got the conversions, but allowing Arkansas State is allowing 37.9. That puts them for 69th in the country. Nice. And then Georgia State, however, they have been awful defensively on third down. 43.8%, 110th in the country. It sets up perfectly for them. I guess it's almost you just have to go out and do it. Is that kind of at the point where we're at with this team? I mean, pretty statistically, much. All the numbers line up for them. Georgia State has had a rough year so far, especially defensively. Offensively, they're not as explosive as what I think a lot of people may have expected from them coming off the last couple of seasons. But is it really that simple? You guys got to go out and do it.
Yeah, they'll tell you the first person we have to beat is ourselves. And if we're not hurting ourselves, then they're in the position that they want to be, and they will tell you time and time again everything that's happened these past 2 weeks. Why both losses happened was because they keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's because the offense can't get going. Something's wrong internally. Something's not going right. Because their offense on paper is good enough to compete with any defense if they have it going, if it's clicking, if it's doing the right things, that it's moving the way it should, and they are confident. It's issues internally. Once they're fixed, they'll be back. And so they're just looking for how they can fix those things.
Quickly, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I know at one point in that post-game press conference, Blake Anderson had said something, maybe I just need to revamp the whole darn thing. Throw everything we've done into the trash can and basically burn it down, start over. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because their offense has had the same personality for so long. Pass is going to beat you. The run game's going to help the pass, but when you're looking at it, it's going to run through Hansen, and that's where the offense is going to go. And when you can hear Blake Anderson say that they might need such an abrupt shift to what they're known for, the personality of the team, it shows you that there's issues, that something's going on. When he cites morale as the primary concern, then that they have something to fix internally. And when they can do that and get beyond themselves, I think it's going to be easier. But with such a young team, you're putting so many freshmen out there with a limited roster, with a limited bench. You don't have much leeway. You have to stay with the guys who you trust the most, and who may not be the most trustworthy guys. And so when you're doing that, they're looking for how they can be successful at this team. 2018, not teams before. They're not going to have any rollover from previous years. And so I think that's what Blake is meaning, is that this team's not going to have, it's not going to be handed to them. They have to figure out how this is going to work, how this bunch can mesh and make something. And so that's what they're looking for.
All right, so there you have it here. Thursday night. Get on out there. We'll be up there for sure. I know he'll be up there. I think I'm going to be up there as well. If you can't get up there, though, ESPNU is where you can find this one. A little earlier kickoff this week, and I know both you and I appreciate that very much so. I'll be at 30 minutes, but it doesn't matter. That's 7 o'clock. Woo! What time did you get home? Or did you even get done?
Well, there was a tornado running through, so 2:30. It was late.
That's about what I was pushing there. So hopefully. Won't be near as bad this next go around. He's Christian Boutwell. He writes for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. He's the beat writer there. Where can the folks find you?
Twitter @ByCBoutwell.
Best.
And of course in the newspaper. So there you go.
There you go. Find him on Arkansas online as well. Make sure you follow him. He's a great follow. He's been spitting a lot of good stuff here. He's become one of my favorite Arkansas State follows early on here. He's only been here a month, so hit the ground running.
Yeah, thanks.
Don't call him Markey State. That's right.
That's right.
So I take no offense to that. Call him Markey State. Doesn't matter. Calm down, folks. All right, that'll do it for us this week here. Again, thanks to our good friends over there, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Christian Boutwell, for joining us here. Hopefully, we're going to have a little something better to talk about. Programming note, though, no show next week. Since the game's not till Thursday, we'll have nothing to talk about until then. So catch us on the next week around there. We'll have plenty to talk about then. Hopefully we're talking about W's then. For Christian Boutwell, I'm Jay Bir. This has been the Wolves Den. We'll see you guys next time.